Hello and welcome aboard another episode of the Talkin Texans podcast. I am Paul Blunt. He is DJ Bien-Aime of ESPN. DJ, what's going on?
Not much, just getting ready for the Western Conference Finals, getting ready, and the Eastern Conference Finals, and also getting ready for some of these OTAs. They start next week, but I'm just really waiting. We're waiting for the Heat Lakers bubble rematch in the NBA Finals. That's what it looks like
I know
we're
you're
going to
trying to
get.
troll me. I know you're trying to troll me already. Nope. Listen, I'm nervous about this series. I'm a Celtics fan. Perhaps we're not going to be able to be friends over the next couple of weeks. It's
That's okay.
okay, but let's not put the cart ahead of the 70-time championship Boston Celtics horse.
17
Okay?
time? You guys haven't won a championship since what? Jaren, can you correct me? Is it 1988?
2008.
1980? Oh, well, my fault. You have one championship since 1988. One championship.
Yeah, but it was a nice
So mentioning all the championships before the majority of us were born, the
Yeah,
majority of
I got
us, I just, since 1988, 1989, the Heat have more conference final appearances, more championships, more finals appearances. Like you mentioning that they got 17 championships, that doesn't move me because I wasn't even alive. I don't even think my
What
parents
about the
were
last one?
together. I don't even think my parents were together. When the Celtics won the championship in 1999. I know they won in '08, but they got one championship
Yep.
in almost 30 years or 40
Yeah.
years or whatever the math is on that.
And the Heat beat the Eastern Conference Finals last year. The Heat beat the Celtics a couple years before. We get it. No one wants to hear us argue about the Celtics and the Miami Heat. It would be a very niche podcast if that were the case. We do have rookie minicamp to react to. And on top of that, some news that broke late last week. DJ, the NFL schedule released to make it a big deal every single year. Does get a tad annoying because you do know who they're going to play every single year, but we now know the order. And I think some people are bummed out to find out that the Texans will not have a single primetime game this coming season. 17 weeks, not one Thursday night game, not one Monday night game either. So I think that's about appropriate, right? I mean, yes, they got a young quarterback and CJ Stroud, some young players, a new head coach, but there's just a lack of buzz with this team nationally, and I'm kind of cool with the Texans keeping everything behind the proverbial kimono until they can figure their lives out.
But weren't you surprised that they didn't even get a Thursday night game?
A little bit. I thought the Panthers game would have been a really good one for Thursday night to have Bryce Young and CJ Stroud maybe mid to late October, where they're definitely going to be under center by that point if they don't start off the season as the starting quarterback. But and there were some other teams too that I thought got too many. I can't believe the Chargers got 6. I'd like to be mad for the Texans here, DJ, but I don't know. I'm accepting. I'm accepting the fact that we're not going to have any of their games, at least unless they play well and get flexed in, nationally televised.
This is 2 wins, 11 wins. That's how many they had in the past, 3 years? So it kind of makes sense why, they don't have any national games. I mean, I am still slightly surprised because, usually you get one, but, the NFL come with new rules to prevent those duds. Even though when the Texans played on Thursday Night Football last year, it was actually a very competitive game against the Eagles. But, I thought they would have got at least one, rookie quarterback, new head coach, one of the hottest candidates on the market. You got 2 of the top 3 picks on the Texans from 2023 draft class. So I was still kind of surprised. Obviously, I had the schedule before it actually came out. I was pretty shocked. And I didn't have a primetime game, but that's kind of why I put out some tweets like, who don't you want to see the Texans play in week 1? I knew they're playing the Ravens. So I was trying to see if anybody was going to say the Ravens or how many primetime games you think they'll get, knowing that they had 0 at that time. But yeah, I was still surprised by that no primetime game. Obviously, I had a couple players, we talked a little bit, or like a little bummed out about it, but I guess clicheishly they're gonna use that as quote unquote motivation. How much motivation? I don't know, but that cliche, that's gonna put a chip on our shoulder. We're gonna prove them wrong. I don't really get moved by that
Well,
cliche.
DJ, that might be D'Amico Ryan's first move as head coach because he said this when asked about it at rookie minicamp last Friday. With that schedule, not having any primetime games, that's the one thing we kind of look forward to. One thing that I've learned is I've just looked at it as for us as a team, we have to go out and earn earn our right to be in those primetime moments. So it was a good opportunity for our team to go out, put our head down, work, and just prove where we belong. Excited about it. It's a nice spin, but it is very cliche heavy that we're going to use this as motivation and we have to earn our way onto national TV. But I do agree, they do have to earn their way onto national TV.
Yeah, no, I mean, again, like I think that's probably like the biggest disconnect between local fans and like the national landscape. Like you have to remember, what does the person in California or Arizona or Wyoming or Iowa, what do they want to see along with people in New York? Like for a while, the Jets weren't on primetime TV mainly because they were bad. You know what I'm saying? Like, and they're in the biggest media market in the entire world. Now they got Aaron Rodgers. Now they have arguably the most amount of games that's going to be on prime time. So when it comes to national games, the NFL, they take that very, very, very seriously. Like they want to make sure that whatever we're giving the audience nationally and the standalone games is a game that is entertaining across the board. And at the end of the day, stars sell. And right now, the Texans, as of right now, they have some talented players, but they don't have any stars yet outside of like Tunsil and maybe Pierce and maybe Petrie. But like they still have to like prove that they're stars. Obviously, there's some talented guys. Derek's talented. Titus Howard's talented. Schultz is talented. You know what I'm saying? Nico, Mechie, but they have potential, but like you have to turn that potential into actual star that makes people want to tune in and watch your team play. So if CJ hits 2024, they're going to be on prime time a lot, mainly because they have over $100 million in cap space. So if CJ can play and it's clear and then, defense takes another step forward and they look like they could be potentially a great unit in 2024, you add in the cap space, you have that big offseason, you'll be able to, become one of those teams that people want to see week in and week out. Cause it could change like that. Like the Jets they weren't on prime TV from after that Monday night game in 2019 with Sam Darnold, the Ghost game. They were on primetime TV after that until this year that's coming up. So they got a star. They look relevant. They look interesting. Now they're going to be all over TV. It could be the same situation for the Texans if they add what needs to be added next season. They show what needs to be shown this season. So in 2024, they'll be on TV a bunch.
You mentioned the cap space. They did actually make a couple of moves over the course of the last week since our last episode. The bigger move was when they signed Shaq Mason. They, of course, traded for this offseason from the Bucks, but he had played with the Patriots before. Nick Caserio had drafted him there in the fourth round. They gave him a 3-year, $36 million contract extension. $22 million of it is guaranteed. It would make him, at least for his agent, one of the highest paid guards in the NFL. I was surprised by this move, DJ, mainly from this perspective. I would like to see him on the field first before giving him an extension. Maybe it's not that big of an issue because of the way that the Texans salary cap is. As you said, they got a lot of salary cap space. This also could be one of those things where Nick Caserio has a good relationship with that agent and, of course, the player and said, hey, we're going to give you this extension. And maybe that's something that Mason also wanted from Tampa Bay. So there's a lot of extenuating factors that I'm not aware of and maybe you can shed some light on. But were you surprised that they gave Shaq Mason this deal before he's even set foot on the field?
Yeah, surprised. I mean, he did allude to it a little bit because somebody asked, I think Brooks asked about his contract situation because he only had 1 year remaining on it. And he said, I'm letting my agent handle that. So that's a little bit of a tippet, you know what I'm saying? In terms of, okay, maybe something could happen. But I kind of agree with you in the sense of, like, while I love the move, we still have to see him play. Let's say he goes out there this year and he's just okay or he's below average. Now you're kind of stuck with him, you're stuck with him for at least the next 2 seasons, regardless, because just of the contract setup. You mentioned the most important number of that is $21 million guaranteed.
22, right?
$22 million guaranteed. He's going to be here for 2023 and 2024,
next 2 years.
no matter what. No matter, because that guaranteed money makes it almost impossible to move him if he were if he would not play up to his standard. But I believe that he will be a really good addition anyway. But I do agree with you, right, about how you want to wait and see it, because that could have been an extension that you do during the season, you know? So it also has me wondering, okay, what's gonna, granted, there's still a lot of cap space, but what's gonna happen with Titus Howard, right? Because
Right.
he is, he's their right tackle. He played at a Pro Bowl level last year. Obviously, he's going to command a decent amount of money on the open market if he were to hit the open market. So obviously, right now it's kind of whispers, kind of quiet on what's happening on that front in terms of the contract extension. So we'll see. We'll see on that front. But back to your original point, they're going to have a lot of cap space overall going into next season. So they got a quarterback on a rookie contract, so they can kind of splurge and spend as much as they really want around that quarterback for the next 2-3 years. We saw that with the Chargers. We saw that with the Dolphins. We've seen that with the Bengals, where when you get that quarterback on that rookie deal, you can really spend as much money as you want to make sure that they do succeed. So once they do succeed, then now, all right, we can start tapering back and removing other players, because now they're in a position where they can help carry more of the burden.
They put a lot of money into this offensive line as it is right now. I think Brooks Kabina had written in the Houston Chronicle that after the Juice Scruggs contract, 4-year contract that he signed, a rookie deal, you have Kenyan Green on the first-round pick rookie contract. As you mentioned, Titus Howard, the last year of his deal, $13.2 million the last year of his deal. And Laramie Tunsil, of course, with the 3-year, $75 million extension. In totality, that could be a fifth of the Texans' total cap space in 2023, which makes sense because you're drafting a quarterback second overall. You want to make sure that guy is as protected as possible. So I don't want to seem like I'm criticizing the Mason move. As you said, it did seem like it was something that was bound to happen. He did mention that's in his agent's hands. And of course, they have the prior relationship. So that makes it maybe a little bit easier for that deal to get struck. All I'm saying is they now have a lot of money invested in the offensive line. Shaq Mason is someone that we haven't seen succeed here yet. And Kenyan Green is coming off of a rough season, though he was a rookie, and he did at least show some glimpses early on that drew praise from some of the national pundits to focus on the offensive line. Specifically, I'm talking about Brian Baldinger from the NFL Network.
Yeah, I mean, again, as you mentioned, Kenyan Green, those flashes were mainly in the run game. And I think this is what he's extremely natural at in terms of being able to move guys off the line of scrimmage and create holes for running backs. But at the end of the day, we know that the majority of offensive lines are unfairly, but it is what it is, judged by how good they can be in pass protection. And that's the most important thing for them, because again, like, if you can't pass protect, now you're messing up everybody's pockets, right? Because the quarterback, if you're getting a quarterback sacked and beat up and getting them injured, now you're holding back the entire offense, things of that nature. So, but I'm good with them investing in the offensive line because they do have a rookie quarterback. You want to give them as much clean pockets as possible, especially CJ, since some people, when they scouted him, had questions about him under duress. So you want to mitigate that as much as possible, because no matter who your quarterback is, whether it's Josh, the only quarterback that is good under pressure, like constant pressure, is Patrick Mahomes. Oddly, you want to keep them in much clean pockets as possible unless you have Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes, I mean, granted, you still want clean pockets, but he's one of those guys that can kind of live in chaos. Him and kind of Josh Allen is, but Josh Allen will give you the turnovers. Mahomes will give you the magic with little turnovers, even under the rest. So I'm good with them investing heavily in the offensive line because, outside of a star wide receiver, a good offensive line is a rookie or young quarterback's best friend.
100%. And the wide receiver side of things, okay, not the most name-filled room, and you're hoping for improvement from a lot of the guys in there. John Mechie going into his second year. We haven't seen him on the field, obviously. Nico Collins going into year number 3. You're looking for those guys to step up. And some of these old veteran players, Noah Brown, Robert Woods and stuff, to step up. But, hey, if you're investing heavily in the offensive line, that should help out with, obviously, the quarterback, and it should help out with the running game with both Dameon Pierce and now Devin Singletary. So we'll see where that one goes. It's a move that I do think is early, but hey, it's not something that's going to kill them. That's the benefit of a team having almost nothing on the books as things currently stand. They made another move, DJ, last week that I really liked because I covered this guy when he was up in Seattle with the Seahawks. They had a guy who went to a high school that's not that far away from where I went to high school. Shaquill Griffin, who is 27 years old, signed a 1-year, $3 million deal. He most recently signed a 3-year, $40 million contract in 2021 to play for the Jacksonville Jaguars. He missed 12 games last year due to a back injury, and opposing quarterbacks were completing about 67% of their passes against him last 2 years in Jacksonville. I got to say this about him, though. I mean, for 27 years old, a guy who's a former Pro Bowl corner that maybe wasn't a scheme fit, he goes to a defense that you're hoping is going to be similar to what Robert Saleh, who was once in Seattle with Pete Carroll when Shaquill Griffin was there. You're hoping that that is something that means that DeMeco Ryans can perhaps use Griffin better than the Jaguars could. And DJ, I'm pretty happy about this move. It adds, at the very least, some competition to a cornerback room that is looking pretty good right now.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you hit it on the head, especially that last point. The cornerback room, I mean, I know it's not like if you look across the landscape, most fans might not realize that the Texans have a pretty good cornerback room. When you add in, again, Derek Stingley Jr., who I think is going to have a massive leap this year, Steven Nelson, who's as rock solid as you can get and played well last year. You have Desmond King, Tavier Thomas, and then now you add Shaquill Griffin. Like all that does, as you mentioned, is add competition at that other corner spot. Because at the end of the day, Stingley's going to be starting. That's that. But again, like you add competition for Steven and you bring in a guy. It's not like you're adding like a guy no name. You add a guy who's a former Pro Bowler who again played in some variation of this system that Robert Saleh, that DeMeco Ryans run some variation of what they ran in Seattle in terms of just the principles from a cornerback position, and he played at a very good level. You know what I'm saying? Again, he made a Pro Bowl. During his time there, I think when I was looking at stats, he had almost 50 pass deflections in like about 53 starts or 53 games, and that's a lot. I had one of my friends, Mike Dugard. He covers the Seattle Seahawks for
My
The
guy.
Athletic. He texted me immediately. He was just like, if his body's not cooked, like his back's not cooked in that system, it should work for him. As long as he's healthy, he should be able to hoop because the things that they're going to ask him to do, Shaquill Griffin will be able to do that at a very good level, a very well level because again, he's really good. He has really good speed, so he can stay over the top because most defenses that's kind of cliche, right? Prevent the explosives, but like they're not going to put him in a position where he's going to be pressed all day, every day, right? Sometimes you're going to be bailed, sometimes you're going to be off at 8, 9, sometimes 10 yards, sometimes you're going to be cover 4 where you're off, but you're kind of locked on who you need to be locked on to, et cetera, et cetera. And since he has that long speed, he can stay over the top and prevent those massive explosive plays. But again, since he's already off and he has really good speed, that gives him the confidence to be able to sit on some out or in breaking routes because you have the speed, you're not too much worried about someone going over the top of you and blowing by you. And now that gives you more chances to make plays on the ball, which is why he had almost 50 pass deflections in his time in Seattle, right? So, obviously in Jacksonville, it didn't work out as well. Scheme fits, things like that happen. That's probably one of the funniest things about when it comes to signing cornerbacks in free agency is people that make cornerbacks play a different scheme. Sometimes you have to. What made them great might have really been that thing because I remember listening to Chris Carter one time and he mentioned that 99% of NFL players are system players. Like only one-on-one guys can really play in any type of system. The system not necessarily it makes you, but it can elevate you. And we've seen that with Pete Carroll cornerbacks. Like isn't it crazy that every single year a cornerback in his system with his coaching plays very well. The list goes on. Sherman, Maxwell, DJ Reed, Griffin.
Tariq
the list
Woolen
goes.
this past year.
Yeah, Tariq. Literally was a Pro Bowl cornerback, and he's been playing cornerback for about like 2-3 years because he was playing receiver at UTEP and then switched over to cornerback his last few years. And his first year Pro Bowl, and again, like this system is going to help accentuate what Shaquill does well. So I'm with you that at the bare minimum, it adds more competition and it adds depth because injuries are going to happen, right? Like, let's say Steven has to miss a game or Derek has to miss a game. Now you can insert somebody like Griffin who can be out there and won't mess things up.
I think that's a good way to frame it, and I think Michael Sean Dugar, who I used to talk to a lot about what the Seahawks are doing, he knows a lot more about the intricacies of the defense that they were running up there. But for the most part, the Seahawks ran this sort of cover three defense for a really long
Yeah.
time, especially during the Legion of Boom days, where they're throwing three defensive backs back. And Griffin had really good closing speed, and he was one of the players on a defense that was rather it wasn't the best defense while he was
Right.
there, and I would specifically point towards the end of his time there, but that was not his fault. And
Right.
I like him as a player, and it adds to a room that per Mike Clay of ESPN ranks as 11th among all cornerbacks in the NFL.
Mm.
Derek Stingley, Steven Nelson, forget about Desmond King, Shaquill Griffin, and Tavier Thomas. Obviously, Jimmy Ward is probably a safety for you, but Jimmy Ward had played a little bit of nickel corner last year as well. The secondary is looking like a strength for this unit. Secondary and offensive line, the two units we talked about the most. These are the two areas that the Texans have invested in. With this Griffin, a lot less of an investment with Shaq Mason, though. Obviously, a pretty big investment.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, again, like I think I wouldn't. How I put it, I wouldn't be shocked because I feel like that's playing it too safe. I would be shocked if like the Texans secondary isn't viewed at the bare minimum as a top 12 unit at the end of the year, right? You mentioned Jimmy Ward, you have Jalen Petrie, you have Derek. You mentioned all those guys on that list, and they're already being viewed as the cornerback room as a top 11-ish unit.
Right.
So I would be shocked if they weren't at the bare minimum, the entire unit top 12. Because again, there's the mix of high-end talent paired with talented veterans that have been around the league that knows the intricacies of what offense is trying to do, how they're trying to attack us. And because you have to have that combination of, all right, and youth and veterans that have been around the block that can help elevate those younger players by teaching them some wisdom. Because at the end of the day, like those veterans, they just might not be as physically gifted as at this point in their career as maybe like a Petrie or as a Stingy, but their smarts will allow them to still be in position to make plays. And now if you pass that wisdom to those younger guys, paired with their athleticism, that can only help the entire unit be one of the better ones. So when you combine veteran, youthful talent paired with D'Amico Ryans, in his system, I would be really shocked if this isn't a top 12 unit across the league. That's why I can't see them again finishing with less than 5 wins. I can't see it. You know what I'm saying?
We're both rather bullish on them. Mike Clay actually just put something up that has led to a bit of discord and disagreement on Texans Twitter. He had for the Texans over under in 2023 6.3. So he's saying over, but he's also saying stay away. And he wrote the Texans' 3 wins last season was the worst mark in the league. All wins came against divisional opponents. Will Davis Mills or CJ Stroud be the starting quarterback? Can the Texans offense be any worse after averaging 17 points per game? Can the defense be any worse after allowing 379.5 total yards per game, which ranked 30th? Too many unanswered questions in that write-up. The questions aren't in the secondary, but the questions are still up front with what they're doing on the defensive line and some of the bodies they've brought in. And that linebacker, too, where they have brought in some talent as well.
Yeah. Once OTA start, we'll start to have a better grasp of how things look. Granted, OTAs this week tell us too much. I remember going to OTA back in 2021, and I remember the best receiver for the Jets during that run was Keenan Cole. And Keenan Cole is a solid NFL player, but that just goes. But during that year, he didn't really do much, right? So that just goes to show not how little OTAs mean, but just you can't take too much stock into that. I remember one of the best cornerbacks for the Jets during that time when I was covering them during OTAs was a guy named Isaiah Dunn, who did he looked really good in OTAs. And then once training camp came around, he was an undrafted guy. Once training camp came around, he was a little more up and down. And when the season started, he started a couple of games, whatever. But he didn't have as much impact as other guys that weren't as standoutish during OTAs. So OTA is about to be around the corner, and that's when we'll be able to see a little bit more. We won't see a lot, but we'll be able to get a better idea of how the team could look. But training camp is when I get like a great evaluation. I really know, okay, where is this team going to finish
Yeah.
going into 2023, the 2023 season, and then those over unders. Now they'll start to make more sense. In all honesty, I mean, now do I see Davis Mills starting over C.J. Stroud? No,
Please no.
no, I don't see that, man. But never say never. I'll say that. But yeah, I mean, I don't anticipate that. But I really am so excited to see him in OTAs and just see how he operates in that setting. It's gonna be a really interesting year for him, right? Because like we mentioned the receivers, Obviously, there's a lot more question marks there, and I mean, to be frank, I mean he did play with better receivers in college than he might be playing with the Texans.
That's crazy, but it's true.
But it's because like Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave, both of them for 1,000 yards in their rookie year. JSN
Jackson
is really
Smith
good.
Jigba, Marvin Harrison Jr.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying. It's kind of CJ Stroud. Yeah, so I think what could end up happening with CJ is kind of what happened with Tua Tagovailoa when he first got into the league. Because Tua in college was throwing to Jerry Jeudy, Jim Waddle, Devonta Smith, and Henry Ruggs.
Are they good?
Yeah, I'm like, that's pretty good. And and when he got to the Dolphins, we're throwing to Devontae Parker, Lynn Bowden, and Mac Hollins and Isaiah Ford. Like there's a drop off there, and with an increase in competition, you know what I'm saying? So I'm wondering how that transition for CJ will be going into the league, knowing that Robert Woods he's been a productive NFL player, and he probably be the number one this year. But again, he had a down year last year. Mechie, I think we talk a lot about him overcoming cancer, but he also was recovering from a torn ACL.
Right. Also, probably why he was a second round pick.
Right. Because he was a first round talent. So we got to see how he looks. Nico Collins, obviously, this is going to be year 3. We see we take another leap. Noah Brown, things of that nature. So obviously, we know what the group is for the most part. Oh, and Tank Dell.
Yeah.
So we have to see how does CJ adapt to that type of receiving core during OTAs, during camp, during preseason? Because then that will really give us even a better indication about the over-under, right? Because again, like we can say, oh, CJ is this and that in terms of talent, looks great, like blah, 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 blah. But he's still a rookie. And I know once training camp comes around, I'm going to be preaching that a lot, that he's still a rookie. So don't have these high expectations of him, especially when his receiving core has a lot of questions. Now, is it lacking talent? No, not necessarily. Like I think Mechie's talented and Robert Woods has been around and Nico has talent. But they still, and they would even admit that they still have something to prove, right? So, that's going to be an adjustment for CJ, going from a receiving core that had nothing to prove to going to a receiving core that's full of guys that had something to prove.
Yes.
So that could be a good thing, right? Because when people have that proverbial chip on their shoulder, which I hate that cliche, but it can be a thing sometimes, and that could benefit the Texans in the short, immediate run.
It's going to be interesting to see what happens the remainder of the offseason. I think that for anybody out there, especially the diehards who are probably watching this, I would encourage you to take everything with all of the salt. Just get a big old sprinkler and dump it on everything you see. I saw a video, DJ, that was, I guess, compiling all the best moments from rookie minicamp. Like, good God, people, we need to get lives, okay? It's rookie minicamp. It's essentially like freshman orientation. It shouldn't be thought of as anything more than that. They're out on the field together, but this is sort of them getting acclimated into an NFL work schedule more so than it is some massive determinant of whether or not these guys are going to do anything. I would say for the most part, OTAs is the same too. Training camp is where stuff really actually happens and the competition plays itself out. But to go back to rookie minicamp, DJ, I know you were there over the course of this past weekend, and I doubt there's anything that jumped out that was crazy to you. I did think it was rather interesting the way that the Texans handled C.J. Stroud from a media perspective. He was asked why Stroud, unlike Anthony Richardson, Bryce Young, Will Levis, wasn't made available to the media. Not the biggest deal in the world, but it did feel like they're trying to make him feel like he's just one of the guys like any other player. Said D'Amico Ryans, when asked about it. We have other players that we drafted. CJ is not the only player that we drafted. We've got multiple guys we've drafted We want to let you guys talk to all these guys, and CJ will be available throughout the spring, later in the spring, also in training camp. So he will be available. So they're going a different route when it comes to, I guess, throwing Stroud into the fire. I don't think this is something that you should read into and say, well, clearly the Texans are going to start the regular season with Davis Mills. That's crazy talk. But at the same time, it was noteworthy, DJ. Did it jump out to you?
Yeah, I mean, jumped me a little bit. I did some research, and I was like, all right, who since 2017 hasn't spoke at rookie minicamp? And one name that did jump out, Matt Jones. So you know what I said?
Patriots thing.
Patriots thing. You know what I mean? Like that's exactly what jumped out. And I was like, okay, this is for sure the Patriot motto. Things that, because again, I think the majority, because 2020 doesn't count because there was no availability during that time. But 2021, I believe the majority of them spoke. I know Trevor spoke, Zach spoke. I don't remember if Justin spoke. We probably did. I was Trey that I couldn't find, or maybe I did find Trey. It was really just Matt that really stood out. Was just Matt Jones that didn't speak. I don't think Patrick Mahomes talked, but I think his was a little bit different since we knew he wasn't going to play that year. Like that was the plan. Like they were legitimately sticking to that. I mean, Deshaun talked. I think Mitchell Trubisky talked. So it was different, but he'll speak out OTAs. I hope they don't think that they can hide CJ Stroud. He's going to be the face of your franchise, and he's going to be the CEO. He kind of holds the majority of y'all jobs in the palm of his arm. Like, if he can't make throws and he can't read defenses, a lot of people lose their jobs. So, I mean, no need to coddle him in that capacity, but, much to be do about nothing. He'll probably speak during OTAs, and, that'll kind of be that.
I think you're hitting the nail right on the head here. It's one of those things where they're just trying to do what worked with Tom Brady back in the day, which was that Tom Brady was not above anybody else, even though Tom Brady was above everybody else. I think they like that kind of mindset that a quarterback is just another cog in the proverbial wheel. So we'll see how that plays out for them. But clearly, I think DJ, that's perfect. Hey, if they did it with Mac Jones, of course they're going to do it with CJ Stroud. It's not that different of a situation. Before we wrap things up, OTAs are down the road. It does sound like in Carolina, and we're going to be comparing these quarterbacks all the time, that Bryce Young isn't going to be getting the first team reps right away. It's going to be from the get-go Andy Dalton, who did play pretty well last year for New Orleans. So you kind of understand why. I wonder how long that actually lasts. I'm curious if Davis Mills is going to get those reps ahead of CJ Stroud to open things up. Obviously, we do not know right now. This is a wait and kind of see deal.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think that it'll be split up. I think that I think him, Case, and CJ, they'll all get reps with the ones. But I think with Andy, because Andy has just more cachet than Case and David. You know what I'm saying? Like he just has way more cachet. Like he's done much more. I think he's a 3-time Pro Bowler. He's been a starter for the past few seasons. He started the majority of last season, and he put up some productive numbers. So I think that's what the difference is between those two. So, but again, we're gonna see. But I do think that once training camp hits, that both teams, Texans and Panthers, need to give their rookie quarterback all the reps because it doesn't. Delaying the reps doesn't help them that much, especially when we know who's going to have the job. Unless they're like an unmitigated disaster, then that's a little different. But I just highly doubt either one will be unmitigated disasters. But did you see that video of Bryce at rookie minicamp?
I did not, DJ. What happened?
You didn't see how small he looked?
Well, we knew he's a small.
Nah, he looked a little bit. He looked
taller than him.
Yeah,
taller than him.
He looks. I've been texting my friends like, are we in 5 years going to wonder like why did we let the Panthers draft somebody so tiny? Like I've asked people that like, are we going to say that in 5 years? But we'll see though. It's May. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't want to say overreaction season, but it's overreaction season. To
right. That's all we got.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. You know what I'm saying? We're still. going crazy about Bryce Young's hype. Or last year where during OTAs, the Dolphins posted a video of Tua throwing a deep ball to Tyree Hill, and it looked like it was a little underthrown. It was in slow mo, and that took over the internet. Just like Bryce
Yes.
being engulfed by his offensive lineman took over the internet. So, you know how it goes.
You guys,
You know how it goes. So.
2 stories to hit the road about the other quarterbacks that are just peak, dumb, it's the offseason stories. One of them is about Bryce Young, DJ. Just react how you will to both. Bryce Young was on the practice field for the Panthers almost an hour before the start of his first workout with his new team. The quarterback wanted to send a message on a huge day. I wanted to set a tone, said Young. I was just here trying to get stuff down like we all were. In this rookie minicamp, we have talked about the themes of the team, and one of them is making sure we are prepared.
Side note, you sound like a sports commercial narrator.
Thank you. I think that's a compliment.
Oh, when you go into that voice,
Here's what's funny. Some people do that seriously for a living in this industry. And whenever I do it, I feel like I'm just being such a fraud. And I hope that everybody recognizes that. Whenever I speak eloquently, know like I'm probably being sarcastic in some way, shape, or form.
absolutely, yeah. Well, at least I know this now. But story to do about nothing. Quarterbacks went to practice early. Breaking news. Quarterbacks do that. Yeah. Oh man. It was so like me and my friend we were not even having a debate. We mentioned like this one guy wrote something about schedule mileage or whatever. I'm just like, I just want for the season to start so we can like, you know what I'm saying? Like, well, we're wasting time on that. You know what I mean? But
Well, you say that now, but let me tell you this story about Anthony Richardson, courtesy of Chris Ballard. Did you know what Anthony Richardson did, DJ, at the orientation program dinner?
what do you do?
Specifically, at the dinner attended by all potential draftees, the room was left a mess. Everyone was leaving, and Troy Vincent saw one person who stayed behind bussing tables before the staff came back in the room. Vincent walked up and approached him and said, "You don't need to do this." To which Anthony Richardson responded, "We left this room in an unacceptable condition, and it's not right for us to expect the staff to clean it all up. I'd like to stay and help," continued Richardson, and he did until the room was cleaned up entirely.
All right, so that moves me more. Believe it or not, that moves me more
It's
than
pretty
the
cool,
Bryce
man.
Young story. Yeah, that moves me more.
That is actually
That
it's a cool gesture. Doesn't mean anything about him as a quarterback, but that is
yeah,
actually a cool story.
yeah, because that shows maturity. That shows maturity and respect for the people that actually have to clean it up by
Yeah.
not making their job hard. That moves me more than that. That gives me glimpses of signs of somebody that can be a franchise type quarterback. Because like we kind of scoff at those little things, but that matters. I remember like last year when I was covering the Jets during the draft process. Like I was talking to a league exec about one specific player, and he mentioned how when this one player was at the Senior Bowl, he made a lot of the workers' life harder by just kind of being a diva. And like, the guy still went first round, whatever. And but he was just telling me that, those little things matter in terms of maturity, right? Because if a guy can make a worker at the Senior Bowl's life harder, you have to take note of that because they might be a prickly teammate to deal with, right? Just for little things like that. You know what I'm saying? Now, is there that much correlation? Maybe not, maybe so, but those are little things that I do that moves me. Like that story moves me because again, that shows a level of maturity um, um, for your
Yeah.
franchise quarterback. But again, it's me, so you know,
The sarcastic side of me saw that and it was like, I could see someone posting this on LinkedIn about how they hired someone because they did that. But
uh,
as you said, DJ, that is a well-raised man. I think that's a very cool thing. Anyone who treats people in the service industry well or helps
yeah,
them out, that is a huge plus in my book. So
yeah, I agree. Same.
he is an Indianapolis Colt, but that's a pretty cool move by him. So
Indeed. It's kind of similar to when like Malik Willis fed a homeless man at the combine. Kind of similar, and to a lesser extent, but kind of similar. But as you said, doesn't really equate to if they can play quarterback or not.
Nope, it does not. It does not.
And that's all people care about.
That is it. Getting closer and closer, DJ. Only, well, shoot, several months until actual football to talk about. But the remainder of this offseason, the Talkin Texans podcast will have you covered. YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. Check out DJ's or DJ Bien-Aime or ESPN. You can hear me on ESPN 97.5 and 92.5 here in Houston, weekdays 10 to noon. He's DJ. I'm Paul. See you guys.